Tokyo's skyline shimmered like a blade beneath the winter dusk, sleek, proud, and merciless. From the backseat of a black sedan, Kenzo Renjiro gazed out the window, watching the flagship tower of his family's hotel rise above the Ginza district. The polished black stone facade reflected the city like a silent witness. His name, Renjiro, was carved into its bones, but tonight he arrived as no one. "Sir," his driver said, "we're here." Kenzo nodded once. The bellhop opened the door, but Kenzo waved him off and stepped out on his own, dressed in a nondescript wool coat, casual slacks, and dark sneakers. No suit, no Rolex, no entourage, no trace of Kenzo Renjiro, the billionaire CEO, just Mr. Yamada, a fabricated alias used for internal audits. He walked into the marble-lit lobby with hands in his pockets and no reservation in the system. It had been arranged in secret by his personal aide. He wanted the staff to treat him like any guest. Not like a god, not like a threat, like a man, for once. The moment he stepped up to the reception desk, he saw her. She didn't glance up immediately. She was organizing check-in cards with a sort of methodical elegance, long fingers sliding across the countertop like they were tracing rhythm in invisible music. Then she looked up and smiled. "Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Renjiro Tokyo. Do you have a reservation?" Her voice was low, smooth. Her skin was the color of rich coffee beneath the soft gold lighting. Her natural curls tucked into a loose bun, with a few strands falling just so. Her badge read Sanaa Blaque. Kenzo stared a fraction too long. She didn't flinch. "No reservation," he said, adjusting his tone to sound relaxed. "Name's Yamada. Just landed. Looking for a place to breathe?" Sanaa typed quickly, unfazed. "Let me see what we've got for a Mr. Yamada who forgot how to plan ahead." She glanced up, playful. "You're lucky it's a quiet night. We do have one suite left." He blinked. Most people, especially the women, looked at him with calculated awe. Even undercover, something always gave him away. The watch, the walk, the air, but not her. Not even a flicker of suspicion. He leaned in, curious. "You sure this is the best place to breathe?" She smiled again, this time with a spark. "If you like city lights and overpriced minibars, you'll love it." Kenzo chuckled, a genuine sound he hadn't heard from himself in weeks. Over the next week, he returned often, claiming the hotel as his base, even though he had penthouses scattered across Tokyo. He was drawn to the quiet undercurrent in her presence. She was graceful but not meek, sharp-eyed, unimpressed by appearances. Sometimes they spoke for minutes, sometimes only seconds, but every encounter lingered. "You always wear navy," she remarked one afternoon as she handed him his keycard. "You trying to blend in, or just afraid of color?" He tilted his head. "I thought navy was safe." "Safe's boring." "I'm not boring." She raised a brow. "Prove it." He left that day wondering why her opinion mattered. Behind her smiles, Sanaa watched him too. There was something too still in his posture, too careful in the way he scanned the lobby. And though his ID said Yamada, she'd seen the real Kenzo Renjiro in headlines before. Charity galas, luxury exposés, brutal business interviews. It couldn't be, or could it? She let the suspicion simmer. After all, she hadn't come here to flirt with ghosts. She came to learn the truth behind a name that ruined her father. She just hadn't expected the truth to come in such a quiet, conflicted package. Across town, the executive boardroom in Renjiro Tower pulsed with cold light and tension. Kenzo's chair sat empty. Akio Renjiro, younger by 5 years and always smiling just a little too perfectly, sat in Kenzo's place for the third meeting this month. The directors exchanged glances as quarterly reports were read aloud. When it ended, One older board member cleared his throat. "Where is the CEO?" he asked flatly. Akio gave a small bow. "My brother is conducting internal reviews at the Tokyo branch. Discreetly." "Discreetly?" Another scoffed. "He's been absent from key meetings. The press is circling like wolves, and he's wandering the hotel like a ghost?" Akio's tone remained polite but firm. "Sometimes, leadership requires stepping away from the throne, but if the board is uncomfortable, I'm happy to step in until he returns with clarity." A few nods, a few murmurs, and just like that, the seed was planted. Later that night, Sanaa sat on her futon in a tiny flat above an old convenience store. The silence was comforting. No chandeliers, no marble, no luxury to cloud the truth. She reached for her journal, but her hand paused at the bottom drawer. Slowly, she pulled it open and took out an old article folded into quarters. Isaac Blaque, The Fall of a Star. The paper had yellowed with time. Her fingers trembled slightly. She didn't need to read the text. The headline had lived in her bones since she was 12. Her mother's voice returned, clear as day. "Men like Renjiro build with ash and call it legacy. They don't care who burns." She closed her eyes. But Kenzo, or Mr. Yamada, or whoever he was, didn't feel like fire. Not yet. Still, her purpose remained. Learn the truth, don't fall for the lie, and never ever trust the eyes of a man who's never been told no. They didn't mean to become close, not really. It began with hallway glances that lingered, then longer conversations at the front desk. Eventually, it shifted to late meals in the quiet staff cafe, away from the polished glass of the executive lounges. Kenzo, still Mr. Yamada, never asked for private chefs or luxury wine. He asked her what ramen shop she liked best. The first time they sat across from each other, steam curling from ceramic bowls, he said nothing for 5 whole minutes. Then, out of nowhere, "Do you believe people are born cold or just taught not to feel?" Sanaa blinked, chopsticks midair. "That's heavy for pork broth," she said, smiling carefully. "But taught. Definitely taught." He nodded slowly. "My mother once told me that feelings were distractions. She said softness was a threat to legacy." "That's disgusting," Sanaa said without thinking. He looked at her, really looked at her. "It is," he agreed, "but it's what I believed for a long time." She bit her lip, watching him in the dim glow of the lights. There was something worn in his voice, not just sadness, regret. He spoke like a man who lived his whole life in silence and was only just realizing he could speak. And that scared her. He wasn't like his father, she told herself. But what if that made him even more dangerous? Later that night, long after her shift ended, Sanaa slipped into the admin office using her backdoor access card. The hotel was quiet. Only the hum of vending machines and the occasional cleaning staff echoed down the halls. She logged in under a temporary maintenance ID she'd created weeks ago. Just a few clicks, just a few files. The system responded slowly, but she waited. Employee records, legal archives, 2006 se 2010 tak. She scanned through names until she found it. Isaac Blaque. Vendor relationship terminated. Internal dispute settled under NDA. She clicked. A file popped up. Redacted documents, payment trails, internal memos. Someone had tried to bury it. Deep. Suddenly her phone buzzed. A message from Malik, her associate at a small independent media firm. "You okay?" Malik asked. "You ghosted." "I can push this story in 3 days. Just say the word." Her fingers hovered over the screen. "Not yet," she said. "I need more time. And he's not what I expected." Don't fall for a Renjiro, Blaque cut in. You know how this ends. She locked the phone. She knew. In a glossy corner office 30 stories up, Akio Renjiro swirled whiskey in a crystal glass and stared at his assistant with narrowed eyes. You're saying Kenzo has been fraternizing with a front desk employee? The man nodded. Yes, sir. Multiple sightings, casual meals, conversations off the books. Hotel security confirms she's not on any guest watch list. Akio exhaled. Name? Sanaa Blaque. No criminal record. Impeccable file. Joined 8 months ago. Akio smiled thinly. Let's find out who she really is. He stood and walked to the window. Below, the city stretched like a circuit board. Perfect. Glowing. Unaware. He had waited for years for Kenzo to slip. Now the moment had arrived, gift wrapped in the form of a pretty black receptionist. He didn't care if she was a threat. She was a useful one. The storm came fast. One moment the Tokyo sky was overcast. The next, rain pelted the glass like gunfire. An unexpected power glitch knocked out the primary lighting grid of the hotel's east wing, including the private library where Kenzo and Sanaa had ducked in to escape the downpour. They were alone, shelves towering, candles flickering from emergency sconces. Looks like you'll be stuck with me, she joked, brushing droplets from her sweater. Kenzo didn't laugh. He stood near the window, hands clasped behind his back, breathing shallowly. After a long pause, he said, My father never visited this wing. Said books were a waste unless they were contracts. Sanaa leaned against a bookshelf. Did you believe him? I used to. I used to believe a lot of things. He turned toward her, eyes darker than usual, the candlelight catching the slope of his jaw. I believed people were tools. That kindness was weakness. That love wasn't real. Just desire dressed up in prettier words. She swallowed. And now? I don't know anymore. He walked closer. But when I'm around you, I feel like I can breathe, and I don't know what to do with that. Her heart raced. She should have pulled away, should have run. Instead, she stepped forward. Kenzo, she whispered. He froze. You knew? He asked softly. I suspected, but I wanted to meet the man, not the name. That was all it took. He reached for her. She didn't resist. The kiss wasn't rushed. It was slow and searching, a question and an apology in one. And when they sank to the floor between poetry shelves and history volumes, it was not lust that moved them. It was something older, heavier, a quiet desperation to feel real. Sanaa's forehead rested against his, both of them catching their breath. Neither moved. He reached for her hand, laced their fingers slowly like he didn't want to miss a single touch. I don't know how to be this honest, he murmured. You just were, she whispered back. They didn't rush to leave the library. Instead, they laid side by side on the tatami floor near the poetry shelves, heads resting on rolled-up sweaters. His arm curled around her waist. Her fingers traced the scar on his wrist he always kept hidden beneath his watch. No one's ever held me like this, he said. Then no one ever saw you, she replied. It was nearly 2 a.m. The city had gone quiet, the kind of quiet that made street lamps feel like stars. They walked without direction. Her shoulder brushed his. Once, she slipped, barely, and he caught her by the waist. His hand lingered there longer than it needed to. I don't want this to end, she said softly. What is this? He asked. She stopped, looked up at him under the faint glow of the vending machine beside them. This, whatever this is between us, the part that feels like home even when I don't trust it yet. He pressed his forehead to hers. Then let's not define it, he whispered. Let's just keep it. Thunder cracked. In her memory, it was always raining. Asha. Back then, she still used her real name, hid beneath her father's desk, knees pulled to her chest. The sirens were loud, the voices louder. Her father stood by the door, arguing, pleading. "You know this isn't right. You know this is a setup." The officers said nothing. One read him his rights in clipped Japanese. Another snapped metal cuffs around his wrists. He turned, catching Asha's eyes just as they dragged him away. "Promise me you'll survive their lies," he said. The door slammed. She never saw him alive again. They stayed in her small studio above the city that night, both of them exhausted from pretending. He sat cross-legged on her floor, sipping tea, watching her braid her hair in front of the mirror. "You don't belong in shadows," he said suddenly. She paused, meeting his eyes in the glass. "Neither do you." He stood, crossed the room, and wrapped his arms around her from behind. Their reflections touched before they did. "Can we keep this moment?" he asked. She leaned back into him. "Only if we don't lie in it." The sun had barely risen. Faint light spilled through the sheer curtains of her apartment, painting golden lines across the hardwood floor. The morning air held a stillness that made even the city seem hesitant to wake. Sanaa stood near the window, tying her scarf, something she usually did with effortless grace, but today, her fingers fumbled. She looped the ends too tightly, then too loose, starting over again and again, until finally she just paused, the fabric clutched in her hands. Behind her, Kenzo watched from the threshold of the kitchen, one hand curled around a mug of tea he'd forgotten to drink. He leaned against the frame, quietly studying her silhouette. The curve of her neck, the tension in her shoulders, the way she exhaled like someone holding back too much. Something about the way she moved made him ache, not with desire, but with recognition. The kind of ache that said, "Don't let this pass." "I have something I want to tell you," he said, voice low. She turned slowly, the scarf slipping through her fingers. Her eyes met his, warm, alert, braver than he felt. "What is it?" she asked. He opened his mouth, but the words didn't come the way he rehearsed them. He should have told her he loved her, that he didn't care where she came from, or what shadows trailed behind her name, that he hadn't slept in days without hearing her voice in the corners of his memory. But instead, he hesitated. A quiet war unfolded in his chest, between control and surrender. He swallowed. "I don't know yet." She blinked. He stepped closer, stopped just short of touching her. "But when I do," he said carefully, "I want it to be something permanent." Sanaa's breath caught. Her lips parted slightly, but she said nothing at first. She reached up and gently tugged the scarf from around her neck, letting it fall onto the armchair beside them. Then she leaned in, soft, slow, and kissed his cheek. Not rushed, not fleeting. A kiss that lingered like a promise she wasn't ready to make, but wasn't ready to let go of either. She drew back and whispered, "Then say it when you're sure." And she smiled, quiet, trembling, brave. Kenzo smiled too, but it didn't reach his eyes. He would never get the chance. By nightfall, everything would fall apart. And that morning, the warmth of her lips, the hush between them, the unfinished confession, would become the moment he'd return to over and over. The moment he almost said, "forever." 2 days later, the city lights blinked softly through her apartment window, casting a kaleidoscope of gold and silver onto the wooden floor. The record player hummed quietly in the corner, an old jazz album Sanaa had picked out just to fill the silence. But it had faded into the background like everything else. Kenzo sat on her floor, legs stretched out back against the couch. His shirt was wrinkled, sleeves rolled up to his forearms, tie undone, and draped around his neck like a forgotten vow. She was beside him, cross-legged, an old throw blanket wrapped around her shoulders and half of his. Outside, rain tapped the window in gentle rhythm. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. Sanaa tilted her head to glance at him. "You're quiet tonight." He looked down at his hand, fingers absently brushing hers beneath the blanket. "I think I'm scared." She blinked. "Of what?" He didn't answer right away, just leaned back, eyes on the ceiling. That all of this, is too good to be real. That something's going to break it. She looked at him then, not just his face, but into it. The tired eyes, the unguarded mouth, the softness that had taken months to carve out of his steel edges. "You think love is supposed to feel safe?" she asked gently. I don't know what love is supposed to feel like. Not really." He glanced over, his voice quieter. "But whatever this is, I don't want to lose it." Sanaa's chest tightened. She scooted closer, resting her head on his shoulder, letting the blanket shift until it fully covered them both. His arm moved around her instinctively, like he'd been waiting for the permission to hold her that way. They sat in silence for a long time. Eventually she said, "Do you want to sleep here tonight?" He looked at her. She wasn't offering her body. She was offering peace. He nodded. "Yes." She rose first, extended her hand. He took it. No tension, no urgency. She led him to her small futon bed in the corner of the room. They didn't undress, didn't speak. She slipped beneath the covers. He followed. They lay facing each other, the distance between them barely wide enough for breath. Her hand found his chest. His fingers grazed her jaw. And when she whispered, "Kenzo," he answered softly, "I know." They didn't kiss. They just watched each other in the dark, her heartbeat in sync with his, and let sleep pull them into the most dangerous thing they'd ever shared: hope. He would wake up alone. She would leave early for her shift, and by afternoon, a dossier would arrive with everything he didn't want to know. But that night, that one quiet, warm, trusting night, would haunt him for the rest of his life. The footage arrived at 11:17 a.m. in an encrypted file labeled, "For internal review only. Urgent." Kenzo hadn't slept. Not really. He had stayed late in the hotel office, reviewing vendor complaints and revenue projections, but his mind was elsewhere, always elsewhere these days. He opened the file on instinct, expecting a legal memo. What he saw instead made the blood drain from his face. Surveillance footage. Sanaa, alone after hours, logging into a restricted terminal, accessing employee records, legal archives. Attached was a dossier from Akio's private investigator, forwarded through Kenzo's own security team. That part stung more. Name, Sanaa Blaque. Real name, Asha Blaque. Father, Isaac Blaque. Former supplier. Whistleblower silenced during the 2008 Renjiro Southeast Asia labor dispute. Filed lawsuit in 2015 under anonymous counsel. Dismissed under confidentiality motion. He read every word 3 times. Then he read it again. It didn't make sense. No, it made too much sense. He thought about her questions, her timing, her silence when he spoke about his father. That night in the library, her hands trembling, the kiss that felt like the beginning of something real. Asha Blaque. She hadn't come to love him. She'd come to ruin him. Sanaa wasn't expecting him that night. She had just finished her shift and stepped into the staff lounge, about to change out of her uniform, when she saw him standing by the window, his silhouette rigid, face expressionless. Kenzo? He didn't speak. Not right away. He turned slowly, his eyes colder than she'd ever seen them. "You lied to me!" Her heart plummeted. I saw the footage, he continued. You used a fake name. You accessed private files. You're not Sanaa Blaque. She couldn't breathe. Kenzo, you're Asha Blaque. Silence. I trusted you, he said. I let you into places no one else ever touched, and you were working me the whole time. She swallowed hard, throat dry. It didn't start that way. Oh? His voice cracked. Then how did it start? With a plan to make me fall for you and then what? Destroy me from the inside? No. She stepped forward, tears rising. I came here to find proof. I came here because your father destroyed mine. I needed answers. Truth. I didn't plan on you. He stared. I didn't plan, she whispered, on falling in love with you. Kenzo's expression didn't change, but something in his chest twisted violently. And you thought what? He said quietly. That love would absolve the lie? I stayed because I saw something good in you, she said. Something real. He laughed once, short, bitter. Well, I hope it was worth it. Kenzo, but he was already gone. It didn't take long. The scandal spread through the board like wildfire. By the next morning, Akio had called an emergency board meeting. He stood at the head of the long obsidian table, composed and compassionate, a perfect portrait of concern. My brother's decisions have grown increasingly erratic, he said, folding his hands. He's emotionally compromised. He allowed an outsider, an enemy of this company, to gain access to internal data. Security confirmed it. A few directors muttered in agreement. One older woman frowned. But this seems personal. Isn't he allowed a private life? Akio smiled gently. Of course, but not when it endangers the company. Our competitors are watching. Investors are nervous. We can't afford scandal. Silence. Then, what do you propose? Akio bowed slightly. A temporary suspension? Let me stabilize the ship while he sorts himself out. And like that, Kenzo was out. The press went feral. Within 24 hours, every major outlet from Tokyo to London was broadcasting the headlines. CEO seduced by enemy's daughter. Blaque and Renjiro, a love affair built on betrayal. Corporate spy or tragic romance. Every clip, every photo of Sanaa walking into the hotel was dissected. Even her smile became evidence. Paparazzi swarmed the lobby. Guests canceled bookings. Stocks dipped. And through it all, Sanaa remained silent. She didn't answer Malik's texts, didn't open the article drafts he sent her, didn't fight back. She packed one small suitcase and left her apartment before dawn, slipping into the crowd with a hoodie and sunglasses. She left the city like a ghost, heartbroken, throat raw from crying alone in the bathroom. She hadn't just lost Kenzo, she had failed her father. Because the truth was only half exposed, and the man who caused the ruin still sat on the throne, or Tokyo turned cold when Kenzo fell. The penthouse was silent. The staff had been dismissed. The blinds remained closed for days. Dust gathered along the marble counters. His tie lay crumpled on the floor where he had dropped it after the board meeting. Disgraced, suspended, abandoned by the empire he spent 10 years trying to lead. But none of it stung like her absence. He replayed her words at night when sleep refused to come. I stayed because I saw something worth saving. He hadn't deserved her faith. The name Isaac Blaque haunted him now, echoed in every news article, every board report, every memory of her eyes the night she broke. So, Kenzo did the one thing his father never would have done. He looked backward. In the Renjiro corporate vault, buried beneath layers of firewalls and obsolete clearance codes, he found the archived internal memos, sealed files from 2008, memos flagged classified by the late chairman himself. And the truth hit harder than betrayal. Isaac Blaque had never been the threat. He had tried to protect workers in Renjiro's Southeast Asian factories, exposing illegal child labor, unpaid overtime, and death trap safety violations. He filed a complaint with the Ministry of Labor in Japan, and Kenzo's father? He forged invoices, pressured legal departments to declare Blaque a fraud, even bribed a local official to blacklist Blaque's supply chain, effectively destroying him. Isaac hadn't betrayed the company. The company had buried a good man to silence the truth. Kenzo sat at his desk, trembling. "I did this," he whispered to the empty room. "No, we did this." And his father had smiled through it all. 3 days later, the world stopped to watch. Kenzo stood on a simple stage in a nondescript hotel ballroom. No lavish backdrops, no sponsor logos. Just a podium, 2 microphones, and a wall of camera lenses waiting to broadcast his every word. He wore a plain suit. No tie, no branding, only purpose. He looked directly at the cameras and spoke without a script. "My name is Kenzo Renjiro, and today I am not here as the CEO of a luxury empire. I am here as a son, a man who has spent too long trying to uphold a legacy that was built on silence." He paused. "In 2008, my father destroyed the life and reputation of Isaac Blaque, an honest entrepreneur, a whistleblower, and a man of integrity. I have uncovered internal documents that prove Mr. Blaque was framed in order to protect Renjiro Corporation from scandal." The reporters began murmuring. Flashbulbs sparked like gunfire. "I won't protect this lie any longer. Effective immediately, I am stepping down from all leadership roles. I have no intention of continuing a legacy built on injustice." Somewhere in the back, a woman gasped. The camera crews jostled forward. "We failed Isaac Blaque. We failed his family. And for that, I will spend the rest of my life making amends." The press exploded in every direction. Within the hour, the internet was a storm of headlines. Renjiro CEO confesses legacy fraud. Billionaire steps down to atonement. Hero or coward? Industry split on Renjiro's confession. But Kenzo didn't check the news. The penthouse was too quiet. The echoes had nowhere to go now. No staff, no headlines to drown them out. The sun bled into the floorboards in long strips, and for once, Kenzo didn't move to close the blinds. He sat on the edge of the bed, the same one she had once fallen asleep in, blanket half kicked off, curls splayed across the pillow like wild ivy. And suddenly he was back there, not in this room, but in hers, a small futon, the scent of rain in her sheets, her hand resting over his heartbeat, his fingers tracing the edge of her jaw as the city pulsed beyond the glass. "Do you want to sleep here tonight?" "Yes." They hadn't kissed. Not that night. They hadn't needed to. The silence had done the talking, and he had been so close to saying it. "I want this to be permanent." But he'd waited for a perfect moment, for clarity, for a sign, and instead, he let a file folder full of suspicion speak louder than the warmth of her body next to his. He pressed a hand to his face, swallowing hard. "That was the last night she trusted me," he whispered to the empty room, and he had wasted it. He would spend years remembering how it felt to hold her while he still had the chance, and how it felt the next morning, waking to sunlight and silence. He packed a single suitcase and disappeared. The mountains in Kyoto didn't speak in the same language as Tokyo. They breathed slower, held their silence longer. In a modest community center tucked near the Kamo River, Sanaa, now Asha again, taught writing workshops for women who had once lost everything to corporate greed. No one recognized her. She kept her curls pulled back, wore glasses, and didn't speak unless spoken to. The world thought Asha Blaque had vanished, and she let them. Each week, survivors sat in a circle, whispering pain into pages. Abuse, layoffs, fraud, lies. She helped them give it shape, give it voice, and it helped her too. One morning, over green tea with the center's director, she heard the name. Did you see? Someone's opened a new charity foundation, the Isaac Blaque Fund. Her cup stilled midair. No, she said softly. I hadn't. Anonymous donor. They've already paid off 3 families' legal fees. Rebuilding a school in Vietnam, too. Sanaa said nothing, but her heart pounded. He didn't sign his name, but she knew. Sanaa's hands were buried in the earth when it came back to her. The memory was quiet, almost shy, like a visitor knocking gently on the door of her peace. She sat back on her heels, wiping dirt from her palms with the hem of her apron. The plum blossoms were beginning to bloom early this year. Just like that night, she had asked him to stay, not because she needed company, but because she had needed him. Whole, unmasked, vulnerable. And for the first time, he'd given her that. Do you want to sleep here tonight? Yes. She had held him in the dark, heart steady against his. It hadn't been romance in the glossy sense. It had been deeper, still, full of breath and trust and skin without defense. She had almost told him she loved him, but she hadn't wanted to be the first. And when she found out the next day that he had believed a dossier over the person who led him inside her quietest self, he held me like he meant forever, she murmured aloud to the flowers. And the next day, he let me become a threat. The wind moved through the plum trees gently. She brushed a tear from the corner of her eye, but didn't look away from the soil. Something was growing there. Not pain, not betrayal. Something new. The package arrived in spring. A simple manila envelope addressed to Asha. Black. No return address. No sender's name. Inside, a deed. A photo of a crumbling library in Kumamoto. And a note. Handwritten. This was always yours. Kenzo Renjiro. Sanaa stared at the paper for a long time. Her fingers trembled over the corner of the note. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a plea. It was something deeper. A quiet act of repentance. She held it to her chest, eyes stinging. And for the first time in a long, long while, she let herself cry. The air smelled of plum wine and spring rain. Cherry blossoms fluttered like snow through the courtyard of the small inn nestled in the hills above Kyoto. Morning mist curled around the stone steps, and from inside the kitchen, the scent of miso and seaweed teased the air. Sanaa stepped outside with a soft sigh, a worn linen shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Her sandals clicked softly against the wood as she stretched, enjoying the quiet. Then she saw him. He stood just beyond the gate, still as the stone lantern beside him. No suitcase, no umbrella, no polished shoes, just a worn canvas jacket, dark jeans, and quiet eyes. Kenzo Renjiro. For a moment, the earth tilted. Her breath caught, but her face didn't change. She took one slow step forward. I thought I imagined you, she said. You didn't. She looked him over. No security detail. No press van behind him. Just him. Older, thinner, but more grounded than she remembered. I'm not here for anything but the truth, he said softly. She raised a brow. And what's that? He swallowed. No bravado. No performance. You were never my enemy. You were my mirror. And I couldn't face what I saw until you left. Sanaa blinked, heart thudding, but didn't move. Do you think words are enough? No, he said. That's why I came with nothing in my hands. She glanced down. He wasn't lying. No bouquet, no ring box, no rehearsed apology, only truth. And for the first time, she didn't walk away. He didn't stay at the inn. He found a shared guest house 10 blocks away. Minimalist, bare, full of graduate students and retired artists. No one recognized him. No one cared. In the weeks that followed, he volunteered at the community center where Sanaa taught. Not with a camera crew or press release. Quietly, he helped local vendors draft ethical contracts, gave free seminars on building businesses without betrayal. No one called him sir. No one bowed. Sanaa watched from a distance. Once, she saw him push a wheelchair-bound elder up a long gravel path without complaint. Another time, she saw him kneel in the garden, his designer fingers covered in soil, replanting cherry blossom shoots for next season. He didn't try to impress her. He just kept showing up. The first time she invited him for tea, they didn't speak for 10 minutes. They just sat, steam curling between them, listening to the soft rustle of bamboo outside the shoji screen. He finally broke the silence. "Do you remember what you told me that night, before you disappeared?" She didn't look up. "I said I saw something worth saving." "And I didn't believe you," he said, "because I didn't believe I was worth saving." Silence. She met his gaze, steady. "I wasn't wrong." That's how it began. Tea became weekly walks, then book discussions, then quiet dinners on the back porch. He never asked for more. She never gave more than she chose. Trust came slowly, like spring thawing a frozen stream. Months passed. One warm afternoon, she handed him a leather sketchbook. Inside were diagrams, ink drawings, floor plans, a concept, a small inn, built for healing. "I've had this in my head for years," she said. "A place that welcomes the forgotten, not just guests, staff too, survivors, creators, dreamers." He flipped through the pages, breath hitching. "You want me to help you build it?" "I want you to help me build it right." He looked at her, not with the hunger of a man trying to reclaim love, but the quiet awe of a man finally invited into a world he didn't own. "I'd be honored," he said. 2 years later. Spring came early to Kyoto that year. The air was thick with plum blossoms and promise, the hills surrounding the city painted with soft green and lavender mist. At the base of a quiet mountain trail, nestled between bamboo groves and an old temple path, stood a boutique inn that didn't scream wealth, but whispered legacy, the Blaque Renjiro Inn. The wooden sign bore both names in hand-carved calligraphy, one in kanji, one in bold English script. They had debated the order once. In the end, Sanaa said, "My father lost everything. Your father had everything. Let my father's name come first." Kenzo hadn't argued. Inside, the inn was unlike anything Kyoto had seen. West African fabrics and rich indigos and ochres trimmed the window panels, while Japanese paper lanterns glowed in warm clusters overhead. Each room was curated with intention, a different theme of healing. One reflected grief and stillness, another, celebration and rebirth. The library held memoirs from around the globe, many written by former guests. Every staff member had once been told they didn't belong somewhere. Now they belonged here. Sanaa sat cross-legged beneath the flowering cherry tree in the back garden, her notepad resting on her lap. She wore a simple linen robe, her curls tucked beneath a deep purple head wrap. Across from her, 3 young women scribbled furiously into journals during the afternoon writing circle. "Remember," she said, looking around, "you don't have to make it beautiful. Just make it true." A few heads nodded. One woman, an ex-nurse from Seoul, who'd lost her license blowing the whistle on pharmaceutical fraud, looked up with tears in her eyes. Sanaa gave her a gentle smile. Truth is healing, even when it hurts. A voice called from the hallway. Sanaa, he's ready. The front entrance had been closed to the public for weeks. Renovations on the last feature, a mural, commissioned in secret, painted overnight beneath tarps and silence. Kenzo stood just beyond the curtain, barefoot in the morning light. No suit. Just a cream cotton hori and his wedding ring, a simple gold band that matched hers. Are you nervous? She asked, stepping beside him. He glanced at the cloth covering the mural, terrified. Good, she said, and reached for the rope. Together, they pulled it down. Gasps rippled through the small crowd. Guests, staff, neighbors who'd helped. The mural stretched across the wall in sweeping detail. Isaac Blaque, mid-stride, one arm raised as if opening a door. Around him, a swirl of symbols. Adinkra for wisdom, perseverance, justice. And beside them, Japanese blossoms and chrysanthemum branches curling like ink strokes across the sky. A fusion of two cultures, two griefs, two redemptions. Kenzo stepped forward, his voice low. I wanted the world to know what kind of man he really was, before they erased him, before we forgot. Sanaa reached for the center of her chest and placed a hand there, over her heart, over everything that had ever broken. He would have liked this, she said. Her voice trembled, but she didn't hide it. He loved beauty that came from pain. Kenzo nodded. The sun caught the edge of his profile as he turned toward her, then toward the mural. He leaned in, forehead brushing hers. He's proud, Kenzo whispered, voice raw, and so am I. Sanaa closed her eyes. We built something different. We built something real. As the petals began to fall, the guests filed inside for tea. But Sanaa and Kenzo lingered beneath the mural. No cameras, no applause, no legacy press to take it all apart. Just two people. Two names once cursed to destroy each other, now carved together into peace. 3 days later, the rain had passed by nightfall, leaving the garden soaked in silver. Inside the inn, the last retreat guest had gone to bed. The lights were low, the hallway quiet, except for the soft sound of slippers brushing against the floor. Sanaa made her way to the small reading room, the one with the paper lanterns and low cushions, hoping for stillness. But he was already there. Kenzo sat by the far window, watching the garden glisten under the moon. He wore a simple navy yukata, hair tied back, his hands resting on his knees like he was holding himself in place. He looked up as she entered, then stood. I didn't mean to intrude, he said. You live here now, she replied gently. You can't intrude on something you helped build. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. She sat beside him, and they both watched the rain-drenched leaves drip into silence. After a while, he said, I walk past the mural of your father every day. She didn't answer. I always think about what I'd say to him. If I could. He paused. I thought I was ready before. I wasn't. Sanaa's hand rested on the edge of her cushion, still, waiting. Kenzo exhaled slowly. He didn't deserve what my family did to him. None of it. He was trying to protect people, to speak up for those who couldn't. And we crushed him for it. His voice cracked. I'm sorry, Sanaa. I know those words are too late for him, but not for you. She turned to him, eyes expressionless. I was angry for so long, she said. Angry at your father, angry at you, angry at myself for letting you in. I know, he whispered. I was angry at myself too. The silence between them was different now, not distant, but thick with all the things they'd both carried too long. Then, quietly, he added, "You once asked me what love was supposed to feel like." She nodded. "I still don't have a perfect answer," he said. "But I think it's this, sitting here, telling you everything I used to be ashamed to say, and wanting you to hear it, needing you to." Sanaa looked at him. "And what are you trying to say now?" He turned to face her fully. His voice shook, barely. "I love you. Not loud, not desperate, just certain. I love you," he said again, slower, "and I don't want to keep healing beside you. I want to heal with you, build with you, be a man your father wouldn't have had to forgive." Tears rose in her eyes, but she didn't wipe them away. She leaned in, resting her forehead against his. "Then don't ever forget him," she said softly, "or me, or what it took to get here." "I won't." And when she kissed him, slow and deep, it wasn't a beginning. It was a return. One night, after the guests had left, the inn was silent. Not the kind of silence that ached, but the kind that held, the kind you earned. Outside, the wind rustled the bamboo grove. The moonlight stretched across the tatami floors in soft slivers, brushing over low tables, calligraphy scrolls, and teacups left out after the last guest had gone to bed. Kenzo walked barefoot down the hallway, his steps quiet. He wore loose pants and a navy yukata with a faint crane motif, sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His hair, longer now, softer, was still damp from the bathhouse. He found her where he always did when she needed stillness. The small sitting room just past the library, lit by a single floor lantern and the soft golden flicker of candles in a glass jar. Sanaa was curled into one corner of the low couch, legs tucked under her, a half-read poetry book resting on her lap. Her head leaned against a plum-colored cushion, her curls falling freely tonight, unruly and regal. He stood at the doorway for a moment, just looking. She didn't speak, neither did he. Then, "You always watch me like that," she murmured, not looking up, "as if I might vanish." "I still worry you will," he said softly, crossing the room. She closed the book, slid over to make room. "You once said I was your mirror," she murmured as he sat beside her. "But I think I'm more like your shadow." "How so?" "I stayed behind after you walked away. Even when I hated you, I still followed the part of you that kept trying." Kenzo didn't speak for a moment. He reached over and took her hand. Delicate, strong, the kind of hand that had held too much and still gave. He brought her fingers to his lips. "You weren't my shadow," he said. "You were the part of me that made it out of the fire." They sat that way for a while. Her head eventually tilted to his shoulder. He rested his cheek against her curls. In the quiet, the candlelight flickered like breath. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "The empire, the suits, the power." He thought about it. "No," he said. "I miss being feared sometimes, but I never miss being hollow." She smiled without lifting her head. "You're still intimidating, by the way." "Good," he whispered, grinning. "I'd hate to become soft." She turned, kissed the curve of his jaw. "You already are." "I'm evolving." You're still dramatic. And you're still difficult." She chuckled, then quiet. He shifted, gently turning to face her. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Us. This." Sanaa looked at him, eyes dark, warm, serious. "I regret we met the way we did," she said honestly. "But not you. Not this." She motioned to the room, the inn, the life they'd built. "I'd go through all the fire again," she added, "if it meant I'd still end up here, with the man you became." Kenzo exhaled slowly. as if something heavy in him finally settled. Then, almost boyishly, "Can I stay here tonight, Mrs. Renjiro?" "You already live here," she teased. "No, I mean," he leaned closer, eyes earnest. "With you, right here, like this." She leaned in and kissed him, slow, deep, grounding. "Always," she said. That night, beneath layers of old pain and new peace, they lay curled on the couch in the heart of the inn they built, with no need for dreams. They were already living them. The end.